Welcome to XJW Talk Therapy and Support. It is Dion and Jessica. We are up here for our talk, and we are going to be talking about post-traumatic stress disorder this evening. We have definitely ran late this evening because we were trying to compile as much information about this as possible. Don't judge us for it, and you can't send us to the back room for it. So come on and jump in if you want to give any of your input, if you're dealing with this, anything that you want to say, you have anything that you want to put in, you want to participate, come on through, pull up, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to you, Jessie.
All right. So let me share my screen here because there's quite a bit of information out there about post-traumatic stress disorder. And I'm hoping you guys really want to participate because there are so many, there's so many components. It's so varied per person, you know, how it affects people. Some people may be having symptoms and not even know it. So I'm hoping this turns into a really informative discussion. So without further ado, let's get going. Managing post-traumatic stress disorder. So post-traumatic stress disorder has a long history. It's probably been, in existence as long as humans have. At the beginning of World War I, it was referred to as shell shock. In World War II, they saw, again, these same symptoms in soldiers, and they called it battle or combat fatigue, and then soldier's heart. So because post-traumatic stress disorder presented so widely in veterans, it was originally associated with them only. The definition, clinical definition, is post-traumatic stress disorder is a condition of persistent mental and emotional stress occurring as a result of injury or severe psychological shock. That's a mouthful. What does that actually mean, especially for someone who is not coming from a military background? When we think about the symptoms associated with post-traumatic stress disorder, and feel free to pop in, Dion, if you, if any of this sounds familiar to you, but intense, disturbing thoughts and feelings related to the experience that last long after the traumatic event is ended. So if you're thinking about someone who's been in a car accident that occurred 3 years ago, but is still unable to get behind a wheel or is shaking, that's long after the traumatic event is ended. We wouldn't be concerned if it was only 2 weeks, but we're looking at something that is ongoing. Any comments, Dion, if you want to jump in?
Yeah, I wanted to say real quick, because of the way that I was thinking, I was only thinking that this was for people from the military, until recently when I'm hearing so many Jehovah's Witnesses that are dealing with post-traumatic syndrome disorder. I thought it was only for the military. So please, I hope that you guys can take something from this information that we're having up here on the platform tonight, because sometimes you don't know, and knowing is half the battle.
That is 100% true. Knowing is half the battle, and that's one of the reasons we are doing this live. So let's go back to, again, what does it mean when we say suffering from the emotional effects of this? So you may, or the person may be reliving the event through flashbacks. They may be feeling fear, sadness, avoiding anything that has to do with the traumatic event. It can also impact daily life. If someone's too loud or your kid drops something, it may cause you to startle or freak out, as we say. So these emotional reactions are not light things that we're talking about. So what causes post-traumatic stress disorder? Quite simply, it's direct or indirect exposure to an upsetting traumatic event. It doesn't matter what that event was, whether it took place over a long time or not, when it took place, whether it was firsthand or secondhand. Perhaps you're experiencing someone else dying, someone close to you. Post-traumatic stress is not just related to veterans. It's not just people who've been in plane crashes or train accidents. A traumatic event in any person of any ethnicity, any culture, at any age. There's no limit.
And so the traumatic event can definitely be from your childhood, things that you dealt with. Traumatic, I guess being brought up in a cult is a traumatic event, depending on how you were brought up in that cult.
Correct. And as we get further into the different types of post-traumatic stress disorder, we'll see that there are specific types of this disorder that are that describe people who've been in long-term situations, an extended childhood domestic, situation. One thing to know is that according to the American Psychiatric Association, which is where 80% of this PowerPoint came from, African Americans, people of the Latinx community, and American Indians, we are disproportionately affected and have higher rates of PTSD than Caucasians or white people. That being said, I want to talk about this because that statistic there, I mean, it's something to talk about, especially when we think about how mental illness and mental health treatment is viewed in the African American community. For us to be affected disproportionately by this disorder, we don't seek help as often. And why do you think that is, Dion?
I'm thinking because as I was brought up in the organization, we were seeing therapists. Our therapist was the elders in the congregation. So we weren't able to seek professional help because that's not what the organization told us to do. So we had to do everything they told us to do. So therefore it was the elders in the back room. That was your professional help.
Yeah, and I one thing I remember was hearing either in a video, one of those little instruction things they showed, that when you're feeling depressed or having these issues, it's a sign of lack of faith.
Right.
That was something I heard.
Something you're spiritually, you're not spiritually strong or something like that.
Yeah, you need to pray more, praying the depression away, praying the sadness away, or the Holy Spirit, and one of the fruits of the Spirit was happiness. So, right. Instead of focusing on the medical side of things, this is kind of how we were instructed to handle these issues. So PTSD, upsetting traumatic event, higher percentage in women, higher percentage in African Americans, American Indians, and the Hispanic community. How do you know if you have it? Or how do you know if you should talk to someone about it? Because again, we're not health professionals, we can't tell you.
Right.
But we can offer, a general blueprint about at what point do you maybe need to call your doctor. So I'm going to share this again. All right, symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. They fall in 4 categories, and I'm going to light this up a little bit and discuss some of the categories here. Now, one thing that is said, for it to be considered post-traumatic stress disorder, the symptoms have to last for more than a month and cause significant distress. If we think about the example I gave earlier about the lady in the car accident, if it were 2 weeks post the car accident and she's shaken whenever she sees a car, we're not concerned. But if we start thinking about 3 years later, she might need to call her doctor.
And that's because she's having long-term side effects. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So post-traumatic stress disorder is a long-term issue. Well, actually, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, and I'm going to go over this page. 5 types of reaction to traumatic events and/or stress. So these first 2 here are actually considered normal, they're not part of PTSD. I won't say normal. They're not part of post-traumatic stress disorder. They're not as severe is the word I was thinking of. So the first is considered a normal stress response. And this is just what the average person experiences, what a healthy adult who's been exposed to a single traumatic event in their adulthood would have. So going with the lady in the car accident, no prior issues. She's, 30, 40 years old, is completely healthy, boom, gets in a car accident. This is what we would expect to see in her. It does not necessarily lead up to a full disorder, but you will see some of these similar symptoms: bad memories, feeling numb, not wanting to experience the relationships with your friends and family.
And this is one of the types right here.
Yeah, no, this is not post-traumatic stress disorder.
So that's just normal stress. Okay.
Normal people. Yeah, normal stress. What happens if a healthy person gets involved in a traumatic situation? Mm-hmm. Oftentimes these type of events may happen on a catastrophic scale. So there's like a mass group of people that have experienced something like this, like an accident, or they'll have something called a debriefing session. Mm-hmm. Where and that's something we're going to talk about later for other types of PTSD, but they get together and tell people that this is what you should expect, a normal stress response, and it shouldn't last longer than a month to couple months.
Got you.
Now, going a little further on a severity scale, still not PTSD, you have something called an acute stress disorder. This can occur in people who've, been exposed to what feels like a life-threatening event. Natural disasters, even losing your job can trigger these feelings. Few people who survive single trauma have this more severe reaction, unless again it's catastrophic. So for most people don't get to this acute stress disorder level when it comes to dealing with a single traumatic event. If that happens, again, it's something that is catastrophic and has affected them on a massive scale. You don't really see this with loss of a job or your car door getting scratched or something. So now that we've covered what's normal or slightly off center, we can talk about the symptoms of actual post-traumatic stress disorder. Going back to, I feel like I'm giving a lecture here. Going back to what we've talked about before, symptoms. The symptoms of PTSD fall into 4 categories: intrusion, avoiding, alterations, and arousal. I know that sounds like not what I'm talking about, but we'll discuss what arousal means in a psychiatric sense. The first step, intrusion. It's when this traumatic event is affecting your life unexpectedly. It's coming in, it's intrusive, like a person coming in your house without permission. The memories, the thoughts, dreams, flashbacks, and these intrusions can be severe. I mean, it's almost as if you were reliving the actual event. So, you know, I have post-traumatic stress disorder, a version of it that we'll discuss later. And at one point in my life, I was standing in my foyer, and the next moment I was back in my childhood home, in my childhood kitchen.
Wow. That's deep right there.
And it scared the crap out of me, scared the crap out of my partner, who happened to be standing next to me when it happened. And it was vivid. It was real. I saw everything as if I were there. And that's called intrusion. So if anyone's watching and, you know, feel, you know, like they may want to discuss some of the things that have occurred to them, or
how long did that last for you? That flashback.
The flashback itself, I'm not the one to give you the exact time, but I will say that at one point I was, my partner had to take me into the garage, sit me down, and bring me back to reality. So, I mean, panic flashbacks like that can last anywhere from, you know, a few seconds to a few 10, 15 minutes. I mean, at that point, you're heading into the dissociative side of things, but
wow.
Yeah, it's not the, it's definitely something that I don't want to experience again.
Right. And so that's only happened to you like once in your life?
Oh gosh, no. No. As they say, repeated.
Repeated? Wow.
Repeatedly. Prior to treatment, and we'll talk about what some of the treatments I went through is actually listed later. This was something that happened not all the time, but on a regular basis. So it, I mean, became part of my life, and I thought this was just normal.
Right.
Yep.
We got any watchers?
We got a couple watchers. No one who's coming in here talking about what happened.
Yeah, y'all try to hop in. If y'all know anyone, you can always share the video as well, because you never know who these videos can help out. We're only doing this to help our XJW community. This is talk therapy and support. So, you know, hop in if you want to hop in. If you have any input, make sure that you give us your input. You know, you can have your cameras down too. We do stream our sessions live too, and then they're also put on YouTube, so you don't have to have your cameras up. Okay, you can definitely come in, say your say, and you can have your cameras down.
Yeah. So going on, let's talk about another symptom, and that is avoidance. Avoidance is not going anywhere near anything that reminds you of the event. People, places, not being able to have a particular drink, not being able to listen to a song because it reminds you of a person. You're avoiding the memory.
Now I have that right there. I know I have that issue because I definitely avoid certain places, as far as where I grew up in my childhood, that I definitely will not touch. Definitely not go.
Yeah. For me, I avoided most of my biological family for years, and I hate to, you know, say that about myself, but it was one of the things that I did, particularly my siblings. I was avoiding the truth, and you know, it led to a lot of relationship issues. You also have alterations, so this could be in your mood, how you're thinking. You may forget things about the actual event that took place, or feeling that it'll, you know, paranoia, guilt, shame, being unable to be happy. You know, I was diagnosed with something called persistent depressive disorder, and it literally is a disorder where your brain does not produce enough chemicals to be happy. You know, you're just at a particular level. You don't go all the way up to 100. You're stuck at 50%, or, you know, 75 or whatever, you know, the person has.
Do you think that also that comes with you blocking things out, the reason why you can't remember certain things that happen? at certain points in your life?
I mean, the alteration in cognition would suggest yes. I mean, cognition means your ability to function mentally. So this trauma, obviously, I don't know for sure, I'm no doctor, but I would guess it affects your ability to remember things long-term and short-term, and it kind of causes a permanent effect in your cognition. I mean, I would guess so. Um, and another one that we're all familiar with, the self-destructive reckless phase. This is called alterations in arousal and reactivity. How you are excitable, how you react to things are off the scale, either super high or super low. I mean, behaving recklessly, sleeping around, drinking drugs. I mean, how many of us had that brief phase where we just did what the fuck ever, excuse me.
And then you wonder how you still even living.
How am I living? How didn't I catch nothing? What?
How did I escape stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. But people don't realize that is a traumatic response.
You don't even know it.
You don't know it. You may feel that, you've done something wrong. I behaved out of character, but arousal and reaction are psychological terms. There's nothing abnormal about people reacting that way to a traumatic experience, or in the cases of someone who was a witness, ongoing traumatic experience, especially.
It's kind of scary though, because of the fact that so many of us are out here and not even getting diagnosed. We're just going with the motions, because I know that's what I've been doing. I've been going with the motions for many, many years, and I'm only this since this month, actually. Well, last month and this month, I'm realizing like, dang, you probably need to get something. Well, I knew I needed to do something. But it's making me think of it even more now, because I'm, at home more. You got more to think about. And you like, dang, I really probably need to see what's wrong with me. See if anything is wrong with me. See why I react. Why am I where I am in my life right now? And a lot of times we don't think about it, because mental health has not ever been anything important. Not with us. It's never been anything important.
That's true. I mean, I know growing up, I think I asked to go to a therapist once, and I was allowed to go twice before my mother was like, nah. So, because it was covered by my health insurance, and, brief moment of sanity there. But I don't think I would have went back without my best friend was the first person to tell me I needed therapy. And then later in life, when I became an adult, and began having flashbacks and things like that, my partner telling me you need to take time to figure out what's going on there. So don't feel weird if you're a special case, Dion. You're able to tell yourself that. And most people don't have that self-awareness. And so don't feel like if you haven't taken that step yourself, or you can't tell yourself to do that there's anything wrong. I wasn't able to tell myself that. I thought I was perfect. And, being self-aware is very, very difficult when you've never been taught to think for yourself or be aware of how you feel about things. So.
And another thing I just thought about, the fact that you may, raise your children differently because of the way that whatever you're going through mentally, it may affect the way that you're even raising your child. And then you're like, dang, well, why did this happen? And I did all of this, but there had to be something within your pattern that either, benefited your child or didn't benefit the child. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, we're products of our environment, and
right.
a lot of times what we do with our own children, if we're not careful, can mimic unhealthy things that our parents did.
Right.
You know, one of the things, I mean, I don't think most people can be as horrible as my mother was without serious problems. But one thing that I did have to learn how to do was listen. I, as you can tell, love the sound of my own voice. And one time my daughter, we're standing in the kitchen and she goes, "Will you just listen to me?" And she was 6 years old at the time, and it just blew my mind because she was so frustrated. And I said, "Do I do that often?" And she goes, "Yes, you always cut me off."
Mm-hmm.
And I did not realize that I was not giving my daughter the respect she deserved.
Right.
And you know, it may sound minor, but that kind of talking over her, teaching her not to, that people are able to speak over her and say their opinion first. I mean, that's not something I want to put in her head.
Because
You
I
know,
don't follow her right through life.
right? And she'll think, you know, her husband or wife or whatever can treat her like that. People at work can treat her like that. So I'm fortunate that we have the relationship where she's able to tell me something like that. But yeah, it affects us definitely.
Big time. Yeah.
All right. So let's see. You've got the PTSD. Well, you think you've got the PTSD, and you're not sure, you know, what's next. Well, if you do go see a doctor and you do get diagnosed with PTSD, there are several kinds. We're going to talk about 3 of them today, and I believe in the DSM-5, which is the newest version of the doctor diagnosis manual, that there are more than 3. I think there's like 4 now, maybe 5. I don't know. But since it's so new, it was very hard to find information on it, which is odd because I actually think it refers to one of my conditions too. But you know, that's neither here nor there. So let's talk about what types of PTSD there are. Let me guys know when the screen's working.
And that was crazy because I didn't even know there were different types until I started researching it the other day. And I'm like, wow, I didn't even know this.
I only found out when I got diagnosis.
Yeah, we gotta start reading this stuff because there's probably a lot of stuff that we just really don't know. Mm-hmm. And if you don't read, you won't know.
All right. So uncomplicated PTSD is your generic PTSD. It's the PTSD that most people are diagnosed with. It's, you know, when the primary diagnosis is PTSD, it's the most common one. So if you're diagnosed with PTSD without something else, then this is probably what you're going to get diagnosed with. It's usually when someone is linked to one traumatic event, not complex over time, not multiple events. It's the easiest one to treat. If you're fortunate enough to have joined the witnesses later on in life and you've only experienced a few years with them, you might get out because you might get away with only uncomplicated PTSD.
Exactly. Get your ass out of there.
Yeah. So
how you doing, Brandy?
Brandy, you join us.
Cooking dinner.
We fine. We fine. Are you familiar with the the post-traumatic stress disorder at all?
I'm familiar, and I don't have an actual diagnosis, but I'm my own doctor, and I'm pretty certain that I have it.
People, we must not be our own doctors.
Disclaimer: don't be your own doctor.
Don't be your own doctor.
But yeah, I mean, I guessed I had a little PTSD when I was in college. I mean, I didn't know what type, but I was like, yeah, I got a little something. It was a lot of something, but at the time I thought it was a little something. Usually we are the first people to realize something's wrong with us unless there's something going on there.
When you know yourself, you definitely know when something's going on.
So if you're not if you've been with the witnesses, you know, a little longer than a single cycle, you're probably not gonna get away with uncomplicated PTSD. So we're gonna discuss two other types: comorbid and complex. Comorbid PTSD is just kind of the blanket term for you got PTSD and something else. Your PTSD is not, the condition that it's associated with is not extreme for that condition to be your primary, but you know, a lot of people have PTSD with depression, or they drink too much, or they got an anxiety disorder. So it's a fairly common diagnosis. Yeah. The next type of PTSD, which I have a close relationship with, as it is my diagnosis, is complex PTSD. The easiest diagnosis that I found is that it's the opposite of uncomplicated PTSD. So uncomplicated PTSD is, you know, one event, you know, single stressor. Complex PTSD is caused by multiple traumatic events and people who've been exposed to prolonged traumatic experiences. So this type of PTSD you find in victims of like childhood mistreatment, exposure to war, community violence, cults. You know, this it's similar to uncomplicated PTSD, but much more intense. And oftentimes it does come with comorbid disorders, but those comorbid disorders are so severe that it's considered complex, not comorbid. So yeah, that was a long way to say it's a very, very, very complex stress disorder. I don't, it's a hard thing to talk about. But you know, I have it, and you know, I'm coping pretty well.
Yeah, you said your life has gotten a lot better since you went ahead and got diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Can you tell us how your life is, how it's gotten better for you?
The mystery was kind of taken out of it. Prior to getting diagnosed with complex PTSD and dissociative identity disorder, which is what my complex or complex comorbid condition is, I knew something was wrong, but I didn't know how to address it. I didn't know how to fix it. It was more like, you know, I know the ship's broken, but you know, I'm no mechanic and I can't go anywhere with it.
Mm-hmm.
Getting a diagnosis was like getting a user's manual almost. And therapy became less talky about our feelings and more working through our feelings at things that I could put into action. And that would not have happened without an actual diagnosis.
So we gotta get diagnosed. It does feel good to go and Google what what symptoms may be and everything. But if we want to get the help that we actually need, it's very good to go ahead and get diagnosed.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's essential. Speaking of diagnosis, let's talk about the treatments for this, because depending on the type of PTSD that you have, the treatment changes. I mean, all of them involve some type of therapy, and you know, quite a few involve medication, but there's different types of therapy, there's different medications, and the way they approach the treatment varies according to what you have. I don't know if we want to go into deep with that, but I'm gonna just scroll on here in case we do. Don't be terrified of the treatment. It can be intense, but you know.
I know, as long as you ain't talking about no tapping into the brain thing where they got your head
Woo!
hooked up and nothing, and they shocking your brain.
Electroshock therapy. I heard they only do that in extreme situations.
Exactly.
Or is it, or is that like outlawed by now? I've always wondered.
I don't think it's outlawed. It might be being done. I think it's still being done in some cases.
Ooh.
It's got to do with a lot of mind control.
All right. So one of the most common types of treatment is cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. I'm gonna throw it out there. It's not something you do if you have beyond uncomplicated PTSD. That's something that you do once you've gotten a hold on the trauma. I would say what I do now is CBT, and that's after several years of intense trauma therapy. It's more of a maintenance thing.
Oh, okay.
One of the sad thing is it's usually the first thing that's thrown at people when they say they need help. Because unless your doctor or whoever's working with you knows how extensive the trauma is, they're going to think you just need a little someone to talk to. So, and that's why we're going to discuss the different types of treatment, so that if you are thinking of going to talk to your doctor, you do know what's out there, and you guys can always Google this and get more information. Cognitive processing therapy. I'm not too familiar with this. I didn't really go through it, but it says that it's a 12-week course where you talk about the event, how it affects you, write about what happened, and then you learn to live with your trauma. I don't know how that works for people who've been in long-term situations, but it does sound like it'd be effective for someone who's having an acute stress reaction, or dealing with the loss of a loved one.
Or I guess it can also be like the loss of a whole family, because
That's true.
even what we're going through with being shunned by family members, that is a grieving. People are
Yeah,
still grieving over that, so I can understand that right there.
it
That
really is a
can be
grieving
traumatic.
process. I didn't
Yeah,
even think about that.
yeah, because that's like my whole family and a lot of people's whole family. Like, that's really traumatic.
Mm-hmm. Exposure therapy, probably good for someone that's been in a car accident or bitten by a snake or dog. In a controlled environment, you'll be faced with people or things that trigger your thoughts, and you use those experiences to overcome the trauma without danger. Not really relevant in our situation, but good to know.
Also, Jessica and I were talking earlier, and what I wanted to say is make sure. Well, somebody had given me the she was giving me the advice. Well, if you want to get diagnosed or whatever, you should just go and turn yourself in. I never felt good about that, because I didn't. First of all, I don't see myself as being crazy, and I know if you're turning yourself in to these places, you probably definitely gonna have to be like losing your mind, and then like Jessica said, you may not be able to check yourself back out. So she said that's not a good idea to go and just check yourself in.
I don't agree with it unless you're in an extreme situation where you're going to harm yourself or others. If you are in a situation where you are going to harm yourself, you are going to harm someone else, and you feel like you can't control it, do go to a hospital.
Yeah, if it's an emergency situation.
If you're in a mental crisis.
Yeah.
Right. But I did meet someone who willingly checked herself in because she was feeling depressed and suicidal. And I don't think she understood that when you say feeling suicidal, they're thinking you have a plan.
That's the only thing they're hearing is suicidal.
They're hearing that you have a plan, and that you plan on hurting yourself, and
right.
It's not something they have time to wait on.
Right.
So she ended up being there for a psychiatric hold, because in our state legally it's 72 hours.
Yep.
So after the 72 hours were up, they didn't feel like she was safe enough to leave, and she had to stay there several more days. So just to know, that's what you do, don't do that to get a diagnosis. it's not worth what it's going to cost you monetarily. If you want a diagnosis and you're not in an emergency situation, your best bet is to find a psychiatrist. Again, I'm no doctor, but
I would
I don't
say,
want to get locked up.
and it's COVID and stuff right now too. You know, they be to put you in there, you just be stuck. So like, yeah, just like be careful with that for people that are feeling like it that they need. But I think a lot of people need to get diagnosed because of growing up into a situation like this, and you not realizing that you were in that grew up into a cult. That's also a traumatic situation right there. To even your mind can be blown by even realizing that, because I know damn well my mind has definitely been blown from it.
That's kind of where I'm at right now.
You kind of in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy because I'm really trying to digest it all. And a lot of people don't realize that it is something when you've been through that type of situation, it's a lot to digest. And because everybody's experiences are different, some people may look at it and be like, oh, it's not that big of a deal. But to me, it's a big deal. It's definitely a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we're all having, I mean, for some people, it blows their entire way of thinking out of warp. I mean, for me, being raised on it, this was all I knew. And then to find out everything you knew, your entire world, everything you used to build a sense of who you were was a lie. Yeah. I mean, for me, Jester, that was the hardest part, because I believed everything. So yeah, and when we went through our treatment plan and it was my turn, that was really what most of my focus was on.
Yeah. Yeah, mine was that. Well, I think my first thing was the family thing. Just like your family literally turning their back on you, like your family literally turning your back on you like you're absolutely nothing. And then the fact that you realize you're in a cult, and then you like, wow. So that's a lot. That's something that can definitely damage your thinking process, your mind, and it can make you look back at the place that you were and look at how much you were lied to. Basically, to me, it's like somebody being raped and not even knowing it, but you're getting raped.
I mean, it can be a little bit of a mind rape.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
So we have one more page that talks about treatments. I've never heard of this first one until today. Transcranial magnetic stimulation. They stimulate areas of your brain to change your survival instincts and how you express emotions, including fear. They say it restores activity throughout the brain with no side effects. Never been through it, probably will never do it, but it exists.
So that is that's something that's got to do with the head thing, right? With them sticking up your head. Yeah, I wouldn't want none of that. That sounds like some mind control. That sounds like the stuff they be doing to the people in the industry. Yeah, because the next thing it'd be like, oh yeah, that's a clone. They don't be the same people. I don't want none of that done to me.
You've been watching the Sci-Fi Network?
No, I be looking at what they be doing, that ML, what they call it, MLK, MKL, whatever, the mind alter control that they do on the people in the industry.
Oh.
That's a cult too. So same old. What do y'all think about hypnotizing? Do they do any of that, like having to do with treatment?
I did EMDR, which is the next thing here. It's not hypnotizing, it's a desensitization process where you are exposed to your triggers, or you relive your triggers, or however, and then through a set of movements, finger tapping, eye flickers, or anything, you kind of desensitize yourself to the anxiety of it. So it's not really hypnotizing, it's more like training your brain not to be afraid of whatever your trauma was.
Oh, okay, got you.
What is it called? Tapping?
I loved it. I loved it. I did that with IFS therapy, medication, and
I've
you know,
heard tapping works good.
Tapping works. I've done that myself, and I don't know why I stopped doing it either, because it was like literally working.
and of course, the last one, medications, SSRIs, NDIs, and a host of other pills. There are side effects. Pay attention to what they are giving you, how much they're giving you. I prefer doctors who aren't pill pushers. Now, don't get me wrong. I love my medication, take it faithfully every day. But some doctors are pill pushers and will push a medication on you without really knowing your symptoms or diagnosis. So,
Yeah.
you know,
If
be
you
careful
really
there.
want to be, if you really want to be, now I'm not gonna say cured, but if you do really want to manage it, then the best thing to do is to get a doctor or a psychiatrist, therapist that knows, that are just like we brought up before, that know exactly what you're going through. Someone that has worked with this situation before, as far as the cults. You want a specialist that specializes, because we are special cases. This is not, anybody just can't work with us, meaning anyone, you don't want just anybody diagnosing you with some type, not diagnosing, but prescribing you with medications, because medications are also known to, that can jack you up even more. So make sure you get more than one opinion as well.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I love my meds. I take them faithfully, daily. I don't miss them. But there was one time a doctor diagnosed me with bipolar disorder and put me on this medication that made me dumb as hell.
Yeah,
I
nobody wants
mean,
to like that.
dumb as a box of rocks.
Yeah, you
And
don't.
I don't even have bipolar disorder. So again, this person had only seen me like twice.
And they
So
told you had bipolar. You were bipolar.
right. So or they just gave me a medication that was used to treat that. I don't know.
Let me ask you,
But
how long do you think does it usually take, or would you say that it takes for somebody to actually diagnose you? How many visits would you say it took them to diagnose you, give you a true diagnosis?
I mean, I'm a special case because you typically don't tell people they have DID unless their alters, want them to.
Right.
So it was years in before I got a real diagnosis, but I would say she began working with me specifically on post-traumatic stress disorder within like a couple months in.
Mm-hmm.
We started developing an actual treatment plan. Like we had a treatment plan, but it kind of reworked itself over time as we became more clear what my goals were. So
Okay. So my reason for asking that question is because these things take time. So don't think that you're going to have a magic pill and you're going to be cured. Just give it the time that you need for the journey. Don't worry about the destination. Make sure you take care of the journey, because that's what you're going to need. You're going to need that journey. Is going to take time, point blank. So don't think it's going to be a fast fix. I'm already prepared that it's not going to be a fast fix. Jesse, I was going to ask you can you talk about your the institute and the waiting list that you're gonna have, that you need?
Oh, for sure. So I think we mentioned before that we want to have a debriefing in early of 2021. Again, it'll be with Common Ground. I really got to call that lady back. So if you are interested in that, which it'll be geared toward ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, please sign up on the website or contact me and I'll put your name on a wait list. We're hoping to also, again, this is conceptual, have the ability to help people find doctors that are best suited for treating former witnesses. So that'll be something else. But again, that's in a conceptual phase. But if you are interested in speaking with someone who's trained to help people begin the process of moving on from a traumatic event and really process what you're up against and what to expect, then sign up and be on the waiting list.
Yep, that's definitely what we wanted to do. This is what we're here for. We're gonna need to try to make sure that we stay in support of each other as always. And just like participate. If you guys, like I said earlier, if you guys know anybody that you want to share the group with, because maybe they are an ex-Jehovah's Witness, maybe they're partly, what is it, physically in, mentally out, or something like that, share the information with them, because the information that we're trying to make sure, the resources that we're trying to make sure that we have can be resources that other people are able to use. So if you know anybody, just share the information. If you guys have any ideas that you want to have for discussions, make sure that you drop those ideas. And I think we have discussed, if you look up on the topics, under the topic tab, anything that we've discussed, any videos that we've done are going to be there. There's an area in there where it says discussion ideas. You can drop your idea in there if you want to discuss something specific that you want to zoom up in. You guys are always welcome to come in on the Zoom discussions. You do not have to have your cameras up. You can definitely have them down. We do stream them live, and then we put them on YouTube because we are trying to get the word out. That's what it's all about, getting the word out. I personally feel myself that they should, that the organization, the cult, I feel like they should be put on blast. They need to be held accountable for the lives that they've torn up. And this is what we're, this is what we're doing to start it. It's a lot of people that are out here making videos and so forth. So we just want to be a voice as well.
Yep. Along with getting the word out, we want to provide resources for people who need assistance. And, that's another major part of our mission. That's what the Institute is about. So don't be afraid to start to talk about what some of your needs are, because as we said, we'll start with the debriefing early 2021, but that's only the first step. So we want to hear your voices. We want to hear your opinions. As far as, if you want to volunteer or you think you want to, help others in some way, also reach out.
Yeah, that's half the battle, though. A lot of people don't realize that you can heal through each other, and that's what I've done. I'm using this platform, my platform, to actually heal through you all, and then you all can also heal through me, and then we can also get the resources to help us all be able to heal. Maybe not, we may never be completely healed, but as far as being able to manage what we don't know what's going on, if there's something going on, it's best to go ahead, get diagnosed, find out what's going on with us so we can go ahead and manage it. And then maybe we can have, do things better in life. Because a lot of times you might wonder why you're stagnant in life. And there may be a reason why, and it may have something to do with our minds, our thought process, and we just not realizing that we can't move forward because of some things that we have not let go. And you just don't know, because the mind is like something, the mind is powerful. So you never know what may be holding you back.
Brandy, you want to jump in there? We're just getting ready to jump offline now. We got a couple minutes.
I myself am going to be looking into finding myself a doctor. I'm waiting on my new health insurance to kick in, so that's going to be one of the things on my to-do list, at the top of my to-do list, because piggybacking off of what Dion said, I find myself struggling at times, and I know that it's something internal, something out of my control. So therefore, I have to move, forward and do what it is I have to do when it comes to the Ninth Institute. If there's anything I can do to volunteer, be of assistance, put me on the list. That's all I got.
All right, Dion, back to you.
All right, well, we'll do that. Does she need to email you or for that, what she just said, if she wants to get on the list for volunteering? Does she need to email you, or are you gonna?
She can go on the website and fill out the contact form, or she can email, Facebook me, and I'll set her up. But the website's always open.
Okay. Yeah.
Institute.org. Sorry, I guess I should say where it is. Institute.org.
Yeah. Well, I thought that was on the page somewhere. We gotta do more. I think it's in the announcements. That's where it says. It's in the announcement. So anyway, we're ready to get out of here. We definitely appreciate any and everybody that's tuning in. Thank you for your support of each other within the group. Thank you for the support for me. Welcome any new people that definitely came in. Thanks for the new admins that we have aboard. I know Brandy's definitely one of our admins. Thank you for, I'm sorry, our moderators. I appreciate your help. And anybody else has been helping out, I appreciate it as well. And definitely Jesse, my it does, doesn't it? All right. Well, good night.
Y'all have a good night.
Good night.